I just turned off the light and leaned back against the pillow when I heard my mother's voice. Her house has paper-thin walls, and I was astonished to hear her on the phone so late at night. She was giggling and seeming delighted, so I wondered if she was speaking to a man. She hadn't dated anyone since her divorce, and this could be precisely what she needed. I was almost asleep when I heard her say something strange, and I realized I wasn't so sleepy after all. I don't think one will be enough. If that's okay, I'd like to adopt 3. Can I pick them up tomorrow? I'm overjoyed. What did you call the youngest child? Levi, what a charming name. What I was hearing was unbelievable. My mother was adopting 3 children. I mean, I could see her wanting to adopt a cat, a puppy, or something, but 3 human beings. Wasn't one sufficient? Mom went off the rails after her father remarried last year. I shouldn't have been astonished because she'd taken up flamenco dancing and rock climbing. But why didn't she consult with me first? I really wanted to rush into her room and ask her what was going on. But she sounded so pleased, and I knew my rage would ruin her night. But she destroyed my evening. I was 16. Why should I have 3 children running around? This was dreadful. When I awoke the next morning, she had already left for work. I discovered a message from her on the kitchen table that said, "Hey David, have a great day. I have a great surprise in store for you. I'll see you tonight." Yes, that was definitely a surprise. The absolute worst kind of surprise. And that day at school was a disaster. I was thinking about what was waiting for me at home the entire time. The nights will be sleepless. I realized I had no idea if these were newborns, children, or what if they were also teenagers? No, she would never do such a thing. She'd completely lost sight of the plot. I decided to go to my friend's place after school and hang out. Back home was the last place I wanted to go. I kept checking my phone, anticipating that my mother would call or contact me, but she never did. She was obviously too preoccupied with her 3 new children to remember me. My friend and I started watching a new TV show, and by the time we finished a couple episodes, it was around 9 p.m. as I walked home. Astonishment filled me when I saw that all of the lights were turned out. I expected to see 3 young humans racing about the living room, but the place was quiet. Mom had a long day because she didn't typically go to bed so early. I was exhausted from my sleepless night as well, so I went straight to bed, much to my surprise. Maybe she changed her mind after realizing she didn't want to change diapers again. I talked to her about it in the morning and attempted to persuade her to change her mind, but it was too late. I quickly fell asleep, but after a few hours, I felt something cool on my pillow. When I turned around to face the other way, I felt this strange pressure on my neck. I assumed it was my blanket and pushed it away, but it only got tighter. I began to panic. Was I hallucinating? In a panic, I rushed for my lamp and turned it on. I was certainly awake. This wasn't a dream. I recognized it wasn't my blanket over my neck as soon as the light turned on. It was something chilly and slimy that moved. At the top of my lungs, I screamed. I probably woke up the entire block with my screams, all the way around my neck. Was it a snake? And it wasn't a small garden snake. It was a full-fledged python, and it was enormous. I couldn't get it out of my mind. I attempted to remove it, but its tongue was hissing at me from right next to my ear. What did the hissing indicate? Was it about to bite me or devour me whole? I was battling with it, but the more I attempted to get rid of it, the tighter it wrapped around my neck. My mother burst into my room the next second, screaming and freaking out as well. "Get this thing off of me right now, Mom, and kill it. Please kill it before it kills me," I yelled. My mother remained silent. She simply ran towards me, took the snake off my neck, and let it slither up her arm before fleeing the room. "Get that item out of here right now." "What happened to it?" I snarled. I'd nearly lost my voice from yelling so loudly. Then I had an epiphany. What if there are more? That's when I jumped into bed and began writhing around. Honestly, a snake is the least likely thing in the world to rouse me from my slumber. What if I injure my mother? "Mom, are you all right? Have you yet killed it?" I waited for her response, but she never came back. She was behaving strangely. I became terrified. What if the snake had already killed her? Was that why she didn't respond? I dashed downstairs and discovered the kitchen light had turned on. I was still unable to hear her. I dashed in, almost skidding and slamming into the fridge. That's when I noticed her. She had taken a seat on the floor. "Someone strokes the snake." "Oh my goodness, what exactly are you doing?" I screamed at her. "Remove it immediately." I said as I carefully backed out of the door. Please, David, calm down. I have something important to tell you. Come with me to the lounge. I'm not going anywhere with you and that beast, Mom. I screamed. I was visibly trembling. When Mom turned on the light in the living room, I noticed it. A massive glass tank sits near the window. I exclaimed, certainly not. I told you I had a surprise for you, honey. Please don't be upset. I know I should have told you earlier, but I couldn't. Allow me to introduce Levy, Noodle, and Cuddles to you. I suppose you and Cuddles have already met. Cuddles earned his name for a reason. She then laughed. She burst out laughing. Was my mother mentally ill? There are 3 snakes. And then it hit me. The telephone call. I figured she was adopting 3 children, but she'd also acquired 3 snakes. This was insane. I trembled as I still felt the snake around my neck. Mom saw how upset I was and apologized for leaving the tank open by accident. She had no idea snakes could climb the stairs, she admitted. I couldn't even stand there because I was so angry. It was late at night, yet I couldn't stand another second near those repulsive snakes. You may choose me or the snakes, but until you make your decision, you will not be able to see me, Mother. I'm going to Grandma's house. Do you realize how insane you are? I yelled at her as I dashed upstairs to pack my belongings. Then I departed at 3 a.m. without saying goodbye. Walking to Grandma's in the dark made me nervous. Living in a house with 3 snakes was nothing compared to it. Grandma was startled when I hammered on the door, but she just shook her head when I described what had happened. Mom's strange behavior was something she was accustomed to, and she assured me that she would talk to her. I anticipated Mom to stop me from leaving, or at the very least to come and attempt to persuade me to return home the next day, but she didn't. Grandma attempted to call her, but she did not answer. She just texted Grandma to apologize. She is busy at the moment and will call back soon. It was impossible for me to believe. She seemed to have replaced me with 3 snakes. I came home from school one afternoon and sat at Grandma's dining table doing my homework. Something caught my attention, so I looked up and couldn't believe what I saw. My mother and the 3 snakes were walking along the street. Seriously though. Her neck was wrapped with 2, while one curled up on her shoulder, leaving me wide-eyed in surprise. My mouth was wide open in surprise as I stared. I realized the lady across the street had noticed my mother as well. But she wasn't just staring, she was screaming, and I saw her go into her house. I dodged as Mom looked towards Grandma's house. I had no desire to engage in conversation with her, and I certainly did not wish to be in the vicinity of those serpents. The same thing happened for the next few days. Then, one day, I took a closer look using Grandma's binoculars. When I realized what I was seeing, I almost dropped them. Each of the snakes wore a little cap. Woolen hats with pointed tips. It was now official. My mother was insane. This couldn't continue forever. I walked over to her house that night and was about to enter when I noticed a pest treatment van parked in the driveway. I stood at the side of the house, waiting for them to go. Eventually, 2 guys emerged and one of them said, "They're harmless at the very least, but I'm not sure about that woman." Did you notice how she regarded the snakes? Don't even get me started on her headgear, she's insane. They laughed, piled into their van, and drove away. When I entered the house, Mom was sobbing on the sofa with all 3 snakes on her lap. She saw me standing there and apologized, wiping away her tears before swiftly reintroducing the snakes to their aquarium. It suddenly irritated me that people believed my mother was insane. Even at school, the son of the woman who lived across the street from Grandma began referring to me as Snake Girl. But I believe I thought my mother was insane as well. But she wasn't insane, she was just obsessed with snakes. They appeared horrible to me. But now that I see her here, crying because pest control wanted to take them away from her, I realize how much they meant to her. Some people enjoy dogs and others, like my mother, happen to like snakes. I couldn't do anything about it. I could stay at Grandma's or return home and find a way to love these snakes as much as my mother did, even if Cuddles hadn't exactly made a nice first impression. David, I really miss you. I adore these snakes, but if it means you'll come home, I'll get rid of them, all right? Please, sweetie, just come home. I wasn't expecting my mother to say that. I considered it for a few seconds before doing something completely out of character. I approached Mom, took up one of the snakes, and let it slither up my arm. Mom looked at me in surprise and began to smile. "So can I keep them?" She burst out laughing. That's how I ended up living with 3 snakes. Despite my fear that they'll get into my room again, I ensure they're fully locked up every night before bed with the biggest padlock in the world. Mom is completely addicted and I can't stop laughing about it. She put them on her head the other day and pretended to be Medusa, chasing me around the house. She adores those snakes, to be honest. She even made an Instagram page for them and has thousands of followers. People adore the small hats she's made for them, and we've joked that she should start a company out of it. Snakes deserve hats. Who knows? It could be the next great thing. My favorite is Cuddles. He's actually extremely pleasant, but I'm not going to allow him to approach my neck. I'm not ready for it again.